Of course, in one of the more look, the Olympics are the Olympics. You feel however you feel about the Olympics. Lost a lot of credibility with me, at least, dropping baseball, softball. I understand maybe not the worldwide sport that some of these other these Olympic sports are, but to drop it for breakdancing is one of the more head scratching moments ever. But then, of course, it is the Olympic Committee. This is the same committee and the same organization who screams about fairness and doing everything the clean way, but does not have the fortitude to actually tell Russia, who it's been proven ran big time doping throughout pretty much every Olympic sport. The Olympic Committee really wanted to come down hard on Russia, but at the end of the day, they didn't want to lose that X number of millions of dollars that they would lose if they told Russia to stay home. So they don't get to have their own flag, but instead they go by the Russian Olympic competitors. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the Changeup, number 43, I do believe, and it is time for us to break down, of course, everything that Major League Baseball has to offer. And when I say we, I mean myself and my co-host, Bryanna Winner. You can find Bryanna at bwinner12 on Twitter. Bryanna, how you doing today?
I'm good. I just hate one of our ups with a passion.
Yeah, it's we're getting towards the end here. You know, we'll obviously do our 3 up and 3 down for the week. Check in our individual teams. Have a little talk about the wild card races. Obviously, a little bit of an update on the gold medal in Tokyo for baseball, the first or the last, I should say, for at least one more Olympics. I do expect it to be back in LA when it does come here, but we will start at the top with some news out of the American League West. Obviously, Bryanna's division, it is out of Oakland. Ramon Laureano, probably remember him last year for the now kind of infamous run at Alex Cintron of the Houston Astros. Well, Ramon Laureano has been suspended for 80 games without pay by Major League Baseball. He tested positive for nandrolone, which is considered a performance-enhancing drug. This year, Laureano is batting .246. He does have an OPS of .760. Obviously, this is going to be difficult for the A's, who still have hopes of running down the Astros in that division, but this is going to complicate that. Still are a wild card team as of now, which we'll get to in a moment, but it obviously makes the Starling Marte trade very key at this point. Obviously, they didn't know this was going to happen, or at least we don't believe they did. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? Ramon Laureano, 80 games, essentially the rest of this year and probably a little chunk of next year as well.
If you're going to get caught, do it in the beginning of the year. So then you could still play like in playoffs, because now you kind of just screwed your team over a little bit. Yes, the Starling Marte trade seems to be a good trade right now, but this is still unacceptable. He still shouldn't have even tried, knowing that MLB is cracking down on just about everything.
Yeah, this isn't the 90s anymore. Major League Baseball is ready, willing, and able to go after these guys. And, you know, for me, it's always a situation of, you know, what does this thing do? I do believe a lot of what performance enhancing drugs, it's not so much, obviously, look, yes, you're going to get stronger, maybe a little faster here or there. But I think a lot of what it is for a lot of these guys is about rehabbing, or, you know, they were down for a little bit, and their way to get kind of healthy would be the steroid way to go. Not quite sure. I didn't do the research on the Nandrolone, but obviously a situation Major League Baseball sitting him down for 80 games without pay. And like you said, for the A's, this puts them in a really tough spot. It does beg the question, did the A's, know this was coming? That's why they went and got Starling Marte, because myself personally, I was very surprised. I'm a big Jesus Luzardo fan. I know he's had a tough year this year. He is still young. It's not too often that you see teams give up on a lefty like Luzardo at his age who can pump gas the way he did. But who knows? This may be a situation where Laureano knew about 2 weeks ago that this was coming. And the A's were found out about it as well and knew that they were going to be without Laureano at some point in September or August. But looking ahead, it is obviously for the A's. We'll get to the wild card here in a bit, but for the A's, now it's kind of about surviving, staying where you are in that wild card race. But shifting our attention back to Tokyo, obviously the Olympics as a whole wrapped up this weekend, Sunday, I do believe. And earlier that day, it was Japan taking home its first gold medal in baseball for the Olympics. They beat the United States 2-0. Obviously, congratulations to the host of Japan, Masahiro Tanaka, a former Yankee, gets his first gold medal, obviously. And the only two losses for the United States in this tournament were to Japan. And obviously, the Japanese team did go undefeated to win gold. Maybe, a big pitching performance was needed. Obviously, I know the U.S. is a little bummed they didn't get their gold, but I think this is awesome. Very surprised that this is the first time Japan has taken that gold medal in the Olympics. Obviously, early on, it was kind of dominated by Cuba. That's kind of slowed down now, but for Japan, first gold medal, they do it on home turf. Congratulations to them. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the Japan taking home gold?
Well, for Cuba, it's slowed down probably because all of their players are now in the MLB.
Yeah.
And the MLB will not allow their players to go to the Olympics. So Japan was without Shohei Ohtani, but we're still able to get it done. If Ohtani was there, nobody stood a chance. At least the U.S. had a slight chance. But if you think about it, Alvarez on the U.S. team now has 2 silver medals, one from a winter, one from a summer. So he becomes the 3rd American to win a summer and a winter Olympic. So there's a little fun fact. But I mean, Japan definitely deserves it. The US, honestly, if you put major league players in there, we probably would have been fine. But I mean, to lose like this, it's okay. You lost to the host nation. Now just come back and be better for LA's Olympics in 7 years.
Yeah. And of course, in one of the more, look, the Olympics are the Olympics. You feel however you feel about the Olympics. Lost a lot of credibility with me, at least, dropping baseball, softball. I understand maybe not the worldwide sport that some of these other these Olympic sports are, but to drop it for breakdancing is one of the more head-scratching moments ever. But then, of course, it is the Olympic Committee. This is the same committee and the same organization who screams about fairness and doing everything the clean way, but does not have the fortitude to actually tell Russia, who it's been proven ran big time doping throughout pretty much every Olympic sport. The Olympic Committee really wanted to come down hard on Russia, but at the end of the day, they didn't want to lose that X number of millions of dollars that they would lose if they told Russia to stay home. So they don't get to have their own flag, but instead they go by the Russian Olympic competitors. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. If you haven't already, I will say go check out Icarus on Netflix. It is one of the more eye-opening movies you will ever see, documentaries you will ever see. But once again, yeah, congratulations to Japan. Obviously, the World Baseball Classic, I believe, next year is that time. That is when the major league players, or at least they're able to go. And I can't wait. I would love to see Shohei play for Team Japan. Obviously, the United States, I do believe, won the last World Baseball Classic. But to be honest, I haven't heard too much about it, so it may be defunct again. I'm not sure, honestly. But moving on to Major League Baseball, obviously, we're getting into that pennant race, trying to jostle for playoff positioning. Be honest, outside of really the National League East, most of the divisions have a nice little healthy lead. Obviously, the American League East has been kind of topsy-turvy. We'll get to that as well, but we'll start in the National League. The wild card races, obviously the top two teams will make it into a one-game play-in, if you will. And those teams at the moment in the National League, the Dodgers and the Padres. The Dodgers do lead the Padres by 3 full games, though, so it would be at Chavez Ravine if that game were to happen today, but it doesn't, obviously. Going down the list, really only 4 other teams, and I don't even know if all 4 of these. I really think the Cincinnati Reds at 3.5 games behind the San Diego Padres currently. Probably the only team that I think can catch the Padres at this moment. The Braves are 7 games back, the Mets 7.5 back, and the Cardinals still sticking around at 8.5. Now, obviously, still with 55 games to go, plenty of time, even for, the Cubs, I think, are 11 games out. If you're the most optimistic Cubs fan in the world, I don't know how you're doing that right now, but if you are optimistic, you can say there's still time, but I don't think anyone will believe you. So the Padres and Dodgers looking like they're going to face off, but I do believe the Cincinnati Reds will have something to say about that. But I do think it's going to come down to those 3 teams fighting for 2 spots. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? National League wild card. You see any movement from now until the end of the year?
Maybe the Mets if they can get DeGrom back, but otherwise, really no.
Yeah, I believe for the National League East, those 3 teams, and obviously I know I didn't bring up the Phillies because they're leading the division, but that National League East is definitely the most intriguing division in terms of distance from first, second, and third. But I think the National League East teams fighting for wild card, they're going to have to feel that winning their division is their best way to make the playoffs. It's going to be a heck of a uphill road, and more than likely, if they do make up those 7 games, they're probably going to win their division anyway. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, the Padres keeping their eye on the Reds, hopefully can start, moving in towards that towards the right direction, but we shall see. We'll get to them in a bit with the Padre report with myself, but we move on to the American League wild card race, and it is Oakland and Boston. They're essentially tied. Oakland is ahead on win percentage points, but once again, still a long way to go, but it would be at the moment Boston heading to Oakland to play that 1-game play-in, but the Yankees are only 2 games back. The Blue Jays only 3 back, and those pesky Mariners still 5.5 games back. And then a little lower down the level, we got the Angels and Indians, both 8 games back. Myself personally, I think, Seattle has an okay shot, but I think it's going to come down to essentially the Yankees, Toronto, and Boston to kind of see who gets that last spot. Now, Oakland, we talked about the Laureano suspension. Do they start to tumble? We shall see. But I think that American League East is going to definitely get at least 1 wild card in. But I mean, when you go 1 through 4 in a division and they're as good as they are, when you got obviously the Rays, Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays all fighting for playoff positioning, it's going to be tough. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? American League wild card.
Angels should be higher. Obviously, I'm going to get to my Angel report in a bit, and that includes the Seattle Mariners. I think Boston is going to move back up, and it'll be Tampa Bay in the wild card spot. I don't think New York or Toronto are going to make it into the wild card just because of how good Boston and Tampa Bay have been. I mean, the only way I can see either of them making it is if something drastic happens with either of those teams in regards to injury or COVID or just anything. But
I agree.
Otherwise, Houston needs to just get out of the leading spot. I mean, Oakland's only 2 games back, so There's a chance. And then someone just needs to overtake them.
Yeah. And hopefully they tumble all the way out of the playoffs, but we shall see there. I will say, once again, obviously it is a bit unfortunate for Bryanna, but the Mariners have been really one of the more quiet stories. And for me, one of the best stories. Obviously, we talked about their offseason full of drama, full of Rotary Club shenanigans, and to be in the situation they are, I don't think they're going to have too much of a chance to win the division, or to make it into the wild card race or anything like that. But nice little showing from the Mariners. I would love to see the Angels get on a run, though. Give the Angels a reason to bring Mike Trout back, because I really do think they're just kind of looking at the situation probably in the next couple weeks. Ideally, Mike Trout will be ready to go first and foremost. But if the Angels can maybe get to 5 games back in this and maybe overtake the Mariners, maybe that will give them reason to bring back Mike Trout. But I will say right now, if they're going to stay at the 500 and be 8 games out of the playoff picture, I think it's probably best to sit Trout down for the rest of the year. But I'm sure the Angels fans and ownership group don't really want that to be the case, but we shall see. And that's a perfect segue into me talking about the Angels. And really, you shouldn't even listen, but now you definitely need to listen to Bryanna as we step into the winner's circle, and she is going to let us know what is going on in Anaheim with those Halos. So Bryanna, take it away.
Well, the Angels are 5-5 in their last 10. They're only 2.5 games back of the Mariners, which is good news. We are at 500 with a 56-56 record. You want to know something funny? So I do fantasy baseball. I am pretty sure the lineup for the first game against the Blue Jays is the same as it was in April, because guess who's in the starting lineup? Mike Trout.
Oh, Trout. Oh, yeah.
Because he wasn't out yet.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I doubt he's coming back for at least like
that's
a
typo.
Weeks. Yeah,
someone copy and pasted 3 months ago or 2 months ago.
Jared Walsh is in that lineup too.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they are hoping that he is back and active today. So I'm not concerned about. It's the fact that they're tricking us with Mike Trout saying that he's starting in a game that was supposed to be played in April and them not changing the lineup. That hurts. It hurts. I was looking at it yesterday to show that Trout was starting, and I'm like, yeah, that's not true. Because again, I don't believe he started doing anything in regards to rehab, just because a few weeks ago he did still feel something. So I do not think he's going to be back at least for a few weeks. So I'm going to move on. So after that loss to the Rangers last week, they ended up winning 3 straight. Adele had made his first game back to the majors, and he went 3 for 4 with a walk. His 3 hits were a single and 2 doubles, and he had 3 RBIs in the 11-3 win. That's a good start for Jo Adell in his first game back. Ohtani ended up pitching the next day. He pitched in the 2-1 win. He pitched 6 innings, only gave up 4 hits, 1 earned run. It had 6 walks, not 6 walks, 6 strikeouts and 0 walks. Excuse me. I had them in my mind, they are flipped. But he did end up going 0 for 3 in hitting, which, I mean, given the performance he was giving on the defensive side, I don't care.
Yeah.
I would love to see him continue his home run streak, but I'm just glad to see him pitching well, especially after what happened last year. So then the team ended up going 1-2 against the Dodgers, which I kind of expected. Detmers did pitch the final game of the series in the 8-2 loss. He pitched 5 innings, giving up 7 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 walks, and had 5 strikeouts. Look, even though it's less innings than he had pitched before, he had more strikeouts. So again, this is only his second game in the majors. So I think he's going to do just fine. And then Jo Adell went 2 for 4 with an RBI. Both of those hits happened to be doubles. So again, Jo Adell, who they brought back because of how he was hitting in the minors, is continuing it right back in the majors, which is good, especially after what happened last year. So this week they are playing the Blue Jays twice today in a doubleheader. They are making up a game from April, like I said. Then they will play them again Wednesday and Thursday. The first game of the doubleheader will be a Blue Jays home game. The rest of them will be Angels home games. And then Friday through Sunday, we are home against the pesky Astros. These weekend series are just tough for the Angels. They go from the Dodgers one weekend to the Astros the next. Like, this isn't fair. But that's pretty much all I've got for the Angels report. I'm just like, I don't see this as fair.
It's tough. The Padres are going to get ready to kind of dive into that in September. They have just a hellacious schedule in September, but you also have the moments like right now where the Padres are playing 13 games with against some really bad teams is when you have to kind of take advantage. And I will say from the Angels side of things, that's great news from Joe Adell, obviously one of the top prospects in the Angels organization, for him to be able to come up and obviously hit with consistency. And that's the key. Look, this guy is, he's not going to hit 350 for his career, things like that. But if he can kind of find a rhythm and get to a point where he knows he's going to be a big leaguer for a little while, as opposed to wondering if the next 0 for 4 day he has will get him sent down. So I think when he gets more comfortable knowing, and I think a lot of it is the injuries and the situation, you kind of have to bring out Joe Adell into the mix. But moving on to the Padres, obviously, this is a situation right now, all of San Diego, all of the Padre fans, all eyes are on the rehabbing Fernando Tatis Jr., man that at the moment is the odds-on favorite to win the National League MVP by quite a bit, by the way, as well, as he's got a minus number, which is kind of crazy considering he's been out now for almost 2 weeks. Now we get to a point and we're hearing rumors, we're hearing reports that Fernando Tatis Jr., when he does come back, will be moved to the outfield, apparently center field. And look, I understand it. I think all Padre fans expected Fernando Tatis to move positions at some point. With CJ Abrams obviously down there, he looks like the more heir apparent at shortstop. Even Cronenworth has been really good at shortstop. But to do this, coming off of an injury, assuming, he does come back, and in the middle of a pennant race. I mean, that's like changing from wide receiver to defensive back in football, which happens, but it happens in the offseason. It doesn't happen week 14. And week 14, you're a wide receiver, and week 15, you're a defensive back. It doesn't work like that. And in baseball, I mean, you're center fielder, you're kind of straight up the middle, similar to obviously shortstop. But for me, much more opportunity for Fernando Tatis Jr. to hurt himself out there in the outfield. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, getting him back on the field is paramount to anything the Padres are doing right now. And they are in a situation where they are in a stretch of 13 games, as I said, with Arizona, Colorado, and Miami. So far at the moment, they are 3-1. However, their one loss was a 5-0 blown lead. They jumped out on Arizona 5-0 in the first game. I think it was Friday night. The Diamondbacks came back and won that game 8-5. Really frustrating for Padre fans. However, they have won 3 straight since. And a big part of that has been the 2 best starts for Snell and Darvish go back to back. Blake Snell and Yu Darvish combine for 25 strikeouts on Saturday and Sunday in their work. And then last night, Joe Musgrove as well was very, very good. Went 6 innings, struck out 8, and he obviously got the win. The Padres win 8-3, I believe it was. I was at that game. Great opportunity to go and see Joe Musgrove pitch in front of his hometown fans, obviously, and pitch very, very well. Currently, the Padres are 65-49. They are 7 games back of the Giants and 3 games back of the Dodgers. But once again, as we talked about earlier, they do have a 3.5 game lead in the race for the wild card. So at the moment, they are a playoff team. However, it's a tough road to get through there. I will say this, though. If you are going to play the Dodgers in the playoffs as a Padre team, the best opportunity is a 1-game playoff. Anything can happen in a 1-game playoff. In a best of 5, that's where it gets a little tough in a best of 7. I don't think there's any way the Padres beat the Dodgers in a best of 7 series. And the way it's lining up right now, that won't be the case. So hopefully the Padres and the Dodgers go into that 1-game playoff. It'd be great if it's at Petco, but more than likely at Dodger Stadium. And if you can get a outing like we saw this weekend from either Snell or Darvish, that would be great. I really do believe the most important thing heading into this pennant race for the Padres is clinching as early as possible, any little sort of playoff spot, because if you are going to go into that 1-game playoff, you need to be able to get your pitching staff ready. You need to have Snell or Darvish or Musgrove or all 3 going on all full days rest, and you get your chance to pick which ace you want to throw out there depending on how they're throwing, and maybe even go and use one of those guys in the bullpen, because essentially it will be a 1-game to keep your season alive. Looking ahead, the Padres will finish this series with Miami. They'll play tonight, the 10th of August, Tuesday, and then tomorrow, the 11th, which will be a Wednesday. And then they will head to Arizona for 4 games against the terrible Diamondbacks, and then go to Colorado and take on the Rockies for 3. And unfortunately, the Rockies have been a thorn in the Padres' side. I do believe this will be their last series against the Rockies. So hopefully they can get something done in those 7 games. I'll be honest with you, folks. Arizona, Colorado, combining those 7 games, I think the Padres have to go 6-1, because the Giants aren't losing and the Dodgers aren't losing. So even with the Padres, on a little bit of a run right now, they are making up no ground on, at the moment, the best team in baseball, which is the San Francisco Giants, surprisingly, but it is the fact. So moving on, obviously, to our weekly 3 up, 3 down. Bryanna had the ups this week. So Bryanna, I will give you the honors for our first up.
I feel like I've had the ups the last 3 weeks. So first up is going to be the Philadelphia Phillies, who are now first in the National League East with a 59-53 record. They are 2 games up on the Atlanta Braves. I don't know why I was about to say Mariners. The Atlanta Braves. So I'll look at their schedule if there's anything you want to say. Oh, well, they're facing the Dodgers these next 3 games. So it should be an interesting series.
Yeah, I mean, for the Phillies and the Braves, and we'll get to them in a moment, but the Phillies currently on a stretch of 8 straight wins. And in that division, look, 59-53, any other division in baseball, best case, you're in second place and you're probably a couple games out. The National League East, not so much. They're kind of taking their they're not as bad as the NFC East in football last year, but they're pretty close, but they are moving obviously in the right direction. A perfect segue into our first down for a team that is definitely moving in the wrong direction. It's the New York Mets. They are 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row, including a weekend sweep at the hands of the Philadelphia Phillies. Obviously, the Mets felt they had done enough and probably did enough. Unfortunately, bringing in Baez, that was a great call. I think that's going to be an underrated move, but it doesn't look like it's fully paying off in terms of success on the field at the moment. Obviously, the return of Jacob deGrom is the next question for Mets fans. I don't think the Mets can make the playoffs without Jacob deGrom. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on the Mets moving definitely in a different direction?
Look, if they want to move up, they need to win every single game against the Nationals before they have to deal with the Dodgers this weekend. So there's a chance for the Mets to go up, but at the same time, if they lose to the Nationals, if they continue this losing streak, it's not going to work out for them over the weekend, because the Dodgers are a tough team to face. Trust me, I know, I just faced them. So Mets fans, I'm sorry, but like Brandon said, if you don't get DeGrom back, you're not making a playoff.
And even then, it's definitely no guarantee. If DeGrom comes back tomorrow, it's still going to be iffy whether or not they can come back. I mean, this time last week, they were 2.5, 3 games up. They are now currently 2.5 games back and in third place. The Braves have even stepped over them, and that might be a perfect little segue into our second up of the week, Bryanna.
it is. It is the Atlanta Braves, who I did talk about with the Phillies. The Braves have gone 7-3 in their last 10 games, and they are only 2 games back of the Phillies, half a game up on the Mets. And look, the Braves are facing the Reds at home, and then this weekend they're facing the Nationals, and then it's going to be the Marlins. So the Braves have a really good chance of overtaking the Phillies, especially if the Phillies lose to the Dodgers. So
That's true.
Pretty much it. Again, Mets, you need to step it up, because if you keep going the way you're going, it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, it's going to be another unmemorable season for those Mets. I know the Mets fans are already kind of expecting this, or this is not their first rodeo. But back to the Braves, obviously 2 games behind the Phillies, as you mentioned. They are 7-3 in their last 10. The one thing about this, it's very interesting, is the Braves are the only team in the National League East with a positive run differential. I mean, the Phillies obviously leading the division. They're -5, which is they're obviously the only division leader. The only other division that has only 1 team with a positive run differential is the American League Central, and obviously that division is done and dusted with the White Sox, a healthy 10.5 game lead on the Indians at the moment. But just going back to the Braves, I really like their moves that they made. Obviously, they brought in Jock Peterson, and Stephen Vogt. But what they did at the trade deadline as well, like right on that day, getting Soler, bringing in a couple other bats, I really think that helps. Obviously, losing for Ronald Acuna is difficult. You're not getting Soroka back this year, maybe not even next year. There's a lot of question marks. But the one thing about this team, they ran very well. They have a very deep farm system. They just need to get those kids up and ready. But it's gonna be a hell of a race. I think it's probably going to be a 2-team race, because like you kind of brought up with that schedule, the Mets have a tough schedule coming up and not a whole lot of room for failure, honestly, especially the way the Braves and Phillies are playing. But another team that does not have a whole lot of room for failure is the Boston Red Sox. I feel like this is the second week in a row, or at least 2 times in the last 3 weeks, that we've talked about the Red Sox as a down team. Obviously, they were leading the division pretty much all year until they scuffled right before the All-Star break. And the Rays have taken over that division, the division lead, I should say. The Red Sox are 4 games back. They are 2-8 in their last 10. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts? The Boston Red Sox kind of fading at the worst possible time.
Look, and they're one of 3 teams who have gone 2-8 this last week, basically. The other 2, the Mets and the Cubs. So, I mean, looking ahead to their schedule, they have a good chance, especially since they have the Orioles in the next few days. But look, they have to get through their 3-game series against the Rays first before they can get to the Orioles this weekend. And then right after, they have the Yankees. So, I mean, look, Boston does not have an easy road this week. They need to win out against the Orioles, which I believe they will. But with the Rays and the Yankees, I'm not quite sure, just because of how well both of those teams have been doing. Which brings us actually to our next up. It is going to be the New York Yankees. As I said, the Yankees are going to be facing the Red Sox this week. They are 8-2 in their last 10. They are 6 games back of the Rays. And unfortunately, Anthony Rizzo, who did just get there, is now down with COVID, as he was showing mild symptoms. But at least he's not out the entire season. But again, the Yankees really need to get some stuff done. They have they're finishing up their series against the Royals tomorrow, and then they have the White Sox in the Field of Dreams game on Thursday. And then they'll finish out that series before they face the Red Sox at home. So, I mean, that Field of Dreams game should be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind
Those
of
jerseys, though.
Yeah,
they're not much different than their normal jerseys.
Yeah. You know, there are very few teams You look at Oregon in the college football realm, and it seems like they have a different jersey every single day.
Because they changed it to neon.
Yeah. Oh God.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
And so did the Fighting Irish. I just can't stand those uniforms.
Yeah.
The neon ones. I'm okay with the others, just the neon.
Yeah, and the Seahawks too, kind of. They have neon bits in them too, but the Yankees and White Sox, they haven't really, like you said, they don't really change their jerseys really at all. Timeless stuff. I'm excited for the Field of Dreams game as well. Obviously, I believe it was supposed to go off last year, but COVID stopped that. And for me, I think one of the best baseball movies out there is, of course, Field of Dreams. If you're listening to this podcast and you haven't seen Field of Dreams, you need to go check that movie out.
And I think next year it's the Angels and the Indians who have it.
Nice.
I believe.
Or the Guardians.
Oh.
Yeah. Had to throw that one in.
They're still the Indians this year. I can say it.
Amen. Yeah. But moving on to our final down of the week. It is actually a double down, and it's a retirement ceremony, if you will, for these two terrible teams. They will not be on our down list anymore just because, look, it's too easy to pick these guys. But it is the Baltimore Orioles and the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pittsburgh Pirates have lost 5 in a row. They are 30 games under 500 and 25 games out of the division. Not to be outdone, the Baltimore Orioles have lost 5 in a row as well. They are 38 and 72, 34 games under 500 and 29 games back of the Tampa Bay Rays. Obviously, both these teams have been retired. I wasn't sure if we retired the Texas Rangers, but if we haven't, they're retired as well.
I don't know if we did, but the Arizona Diamondbacks deserved their retirement weeks ago.
They were, I think, pre-All-Star break retired from this list.
Well, they're 35 and 78, so
they
deserve it.
Yeah, big time. And like I said, the Rangers, if we haven't said it before, they have been retired as well. They've also lost 6 in a row, but you're really seeing kind of the bottom feeder teams lay down, kind of play dead, if you will. They're ready to try and look to next year, try and get their best draft pick they can. But Bryanna, what are your thoughts on really the cellar dwellers?
I mean, look, we knew that they were going to be bad. The Orioles actually started off really well, and then it just went down. The Pirates, we knew weren't going to do well, especially after last year. Diamondbacks, I mean, look, they're the worst team in the league, and there's no way around it. I mean, they've only lost 2 in a row. I believe they beat the Rockies.
Yep.
If I remember correctly. And then Texas. They're 17 games back of the Angels. And the Angels are in 4th. So I'm sorry. And then Texas lost 6 straight.
Yep.
So these teams deserve it.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty soon I think it's gonna be the Twins.
Yeah, they're in that area. Believe me, they're now that we're getting rid of those 4 teams, or at least this point, these 3 teams, and then the Diamondbacks are in there. That is pretty much the next possible situation.
I mean, they're only 19 games back of the White Sox, though.
Yeah.
But nobody is going to catch up to the White Sox unless something drastic happens and more of their team gets injured.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't know how they're doing
games back of second place. I mean, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but the Twins are they're definitely in the crosshairs of this. The Tigers as well. But the bottom dweller teams, obviously, they've fully shipped everyone out. I will say, I do expect, at some point the Nationals to be in there. And unfortunately, we have talked about the Cubs. Yeah. Just the teams
they
that have
deserve
kind of
it.
Sold everybody. Now you're going to see a lot of guys.
The Cubs deserve it after what they did to us.
100%.
They deserve it.
Yep. I agree. They blew that up. It's like the Joker, right? Walking away. I think it's Dark Knight, and he from the hospital, and it just blows up. And that was the Cubs general manager. I think it's Jed Hoyer still. But that was him blowing up and walking away, thinking everything is going to be just fine. And that's not how it's been, unfortunately. But Bryanna, final thoughts for another episode of the Changeup.
Angels, please. I want Mike Trout to come back. Make it worth it.
Yep.
Please.
I agree.
begging.
I agree. I think if we can see the Angels, or if we can see Mike Trout this year, that would be great. And I believe the big part of that will be how the Angels perform probably in the next 2 weeks. Once again, assuming he is healthy, obviously, but the fact that they haven't shut him down, or at least come out and said, okay, his season's over, I think is a positive sign for baseball fans and Angel fans alike, to see the best player in baseball.
Yeah.
Because
and look, they've got the Blue Jays, the Astros, their one makeup game against the Yankees. And then they've got the Tigers and Indians.
Oh.
And then to the Orioles.
Yeah.
And then it's you.
Oof. We'll see how that goes. That'll be a tough one. Maybe we could Mike Trout can come back after the Padres series. I love Mike.
They have
Trout.
the Yankees right after your series.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Save him for the Yankees. Yeah. We don't. He doesn't need to come out for the Padres. The little old Padres. Don't worry about that. But my final thoughts. Just the situation. We're getting down to it. Obviously, baseball season is an absolute marathon. 162 games, but we're getting into that sprint portion of the year. Obviously, the scoreboard watching has begun, and a situation of obviously cheering against that rival. In my case, for the Padres, obviously always cheering against the Dodgers and Giants, but now it's kind of cheering against the Reds, the Phillies, and the Mets and the Braves, just to kind of keep them back from the wild card. But I don't think I have too much to worry about, at least outside of the Reds. But it's going to be the biggest thing right now, getting Fernando Tatis back. Very similar for the Angels. Their big thing right now is getting Mike Trout back. But if the Padres can get Fernando Tatis back, get him comfortable, keep him healthy, who knows? We'll see what happens. That 1-game playoff against the Dodgers, I firmly believe that is their best way to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series, is a 1-game playoff, 1-game play-in game, if you will. So the way it's looking, that seems to be the case. And then if it's not them, it would probably be the Giants. But if that happens, they would definitely have to scuffle big time, because I believe right now they still have a 4-game lead. Yes, 4-game lead on the Dodgers. So that is all we have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to the Changeup presented by the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon, and take care.